Hi, I am Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. Welcome to my channel. This is going to be a series of videos really targeted towards helping you heal your attachment, wounds, and story as it relates to the trauma, the relational trauma, often in your childhood, and how that plays out. So these are meant to be little, hopefully daily little doses of love around attachment and these feelings, and kind of how your style plays out, and hopefully giving you just a couple little things to think about as you go through your day and interact with those in your life that you care about, including hopefully yourself. So we're going to start with the idea that really goes through often a checklist of the qualities that people have with different attachment experiences. And the first one is about worry. It is about worrying about how much your partner is committed to you or how much they love you. And so the amount of worry really can depend upon how you show up within your own self-regulation and what you expect in relationships. So for example, people who have a more anxious attachment style and a more disorganized style often worry a lot about their partner falling out of love with them, being in love with them, leaving them. But we're focusing really on worrying about how much the person cares for or loves them in this video. And so they're really thinking about the quality of the relationship. And for people that have the more anxious or disorganized part that leans into the anxious part of the spectrum, they're really scanning for rejection. Remember, they are going to be living in often a very hypervigilant state, looking for any, affirmation that I knew it. I knew you were going to fall out of love with me. I knew you were going to leave me. Now, if you have a more disorganized pattern, you have that part. And then you can also have the, oh my gosh, that love is scary and dangerous. Don't get too close. I'm going to be engulfed by you, right? And that part can kind of have that mix of avoidance and fearfulness because, of course, disorganized attachment is about the source of safety being the source of also a fear. And quick reminder, the anxious type pattern really has a caregiver who is inconsistent, often lacks consistency in their responsiveness, so sometimes there, sometimes not, sometimes trying to attune but misattuning, and really important, causing the child to be over-involved in the caretaker's state of mind. So really having to kind of have an outside-in orientation. Is my parent okay? What do they need? And that becomes our primary way of showing up. So that happens in a more anxious and a more disorganized world. And then avoidance, remember, is often the parents not really liking negative emotions, and so kind of shutting those down. I have a lot of videos on attachment, so if you want to go into those in more depth, please check those out. So basically what's happening is we're becoming hypervigilant in relationships because we're thinking about this level of worry. Now, one could argue that avoidants aren't worrying enough, right? Or the minute they start to get close, then they start to worry, and that kind of panic sets in, and they often then will move back away. But what we're talking about today is recognizing how much do you hold this piece where you're worrying about the state of your partner reciprocating love or affection or being there for you. And obviously, if you're someone who thinks about it maybe too much or more often than you'd like, that is a very stressful place to live in. You're always thinking about it, and then your body is living in that scanning state too. So what we're going to talk about real quickly is what can you do about this? If you're like, yes, this is me, I definitely have these more anxious qualities where I worry too much, you want to start to recognize, what is this about, right? Is this a historical thing? In other words, I've always been this way, but my partner is really not giving me any reasons. I'm almost creating them or looking for them. Or is it, no, they're doing all these things, but maybe you're interpreting them as rejection, which is a different issue. So you just want to start to identify, what is this? What does this feel like? Not just what's my past, but what is happening with my partner or my feelings right now. And then you want to say, is there any evidence that the partner is maybe falling out of love with me? And of course, we can make up all kinds of scenarios and reasons when we have this attachment style, but start to kind of challenge yourself. And then of course, you want to look at things like, how are you responding to these things that feel like threats? Are you engaging in protest behaviors, doing things to intentionally poke them emotionally or relationally to get them to be like, oh, they do love me, right? I'm going to pout, I'm going to cry, I'm going to play games, I'm going to be some kind of manipulative behavior going on to try to make sure, do you still love me? So are you doing that? And try to, say, like, be honest with yourself. What does that look like? Do you want to keep doing that? Or alternatively, could you try to have a conversation with your partner? Now, I know if, let's say, you're anxious and your partner is really avoidant, oftentimes that's not going to be easy, but we're trying to grow and develop healthier ways to respond to the threats in our body, unlike in childhood where we really had no choice and no language and no tools. So then you want to learn to communicate with your partner. You know what? I've been feeling these feelings and I just want to check in with you. How are you feeling? How are you feeling about us? You just want to kind of like lean into that, which is going to be usually easier for those with anxious attachment. We're pretty good at communicating, but it's receiving back what we hear that can be hard. So you don't want to jump to conclusions. Like the minute they give you an answer that feels like rejection, you're like, there's the evidence I needed. I'm out of here, right? You want to try to slow down, get into a calm state of breathing, and try to have a dialogue and a conversation about that. Remember that too, what's happening is your belief system, if you're more anxious, is like, I am too much. I am too much. I have too many needs. No one will ever truly be able to reciprocate what I need. And so you're seeking that reinforcement of that belief system in the world. And so it's really important to challenge that. You're not too much, that you're allowed to have needs, that it's okay that in your childhood you didn't get these things met, but that you want to heal them today. And along those lines, it's important to be able to tell your partner what helps soothe and calm. And if the partner's watching this, it's important for you to try to do those things. For example, I always say, if you are more anxious and you're more worried about something happening to your partner when they go out at night, and you say, hey babe, could you just text me when you get there, and like when you're on your way home, or when you get home if you don't live together, that should be like no big deal. A loving partner should say, yeah, no problem. Now, texting them all night and disrupting things, and that's different. But if you want to help your partner feel secure, then you go, sure, no problem, I'll do that. And if you forget, you say, you don't get mad because they got upset with you. You go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I forgot. I will work at that and I will try harder. And then you just do it. You don't say things like, well, why are you being insecure? Well, why don't you trust me? Well, I feel controlled. That would be a more avoidant response. And so if you're an avoidant person watching this, you need to be able to be responsive to your partner's worries. And then really the thing is that there's this inconsistency at all times between when you have a more anxious style, feeling wanted and then feeling rejected. And so you're challenged to try to balance that in all your relationships. And the same thing is true if you're more disorganized, because you probably have qualities of that are very strong. And then if you're a more avoidant dynamic, it's about trying to, and if you're with somebody who is more of a worrier or more anxious, to try to, like I said, meet them where they are and try to help honor that. For you, this trigger is usually less of an issue. You're not really spending as much time worrying about it. Where it can feel overwhelming for you is when you start to get really close, and then all of a sudden those triggers of being too vulnerable or having to check into your emotions can be stressful. In fact, if you start to worry, that can trigger you as an avoidant to move back. And so that's a different conversation in video, but you also want to recognize that and try to find other ways to lean in, as opposed to your panic and worry causing you to kind of hit the road and back out of the relationship in some fashion to kind of set that block up. So that's really the core of this one. It's like looking at however worry shows up, whether it's a deep trigger of vulnerability or a more daily chronic vulnerability fear trigger of being rejected or hurt or things being too intense and not feeling that that is reciprocated, to try to find ways to slow down, to honor it, and to be really aware of what you're doing, especially if you're engaging in protest behaviors, because in the moment they kind of work, right? If I play a game and don't text you back, I might get my partner to respond, but that creates little seeds of resentment oftentimes in the relationship because we're not having a real dialogue. We're using these tactics to get what we need instead of asking each other to give us what we need and what we deserve. So I hope you found this video helpful. I will see you tomorrow with another video about attachment healing. Just little bits of love I hope help you understand and heal your story and your life. Please take care and have a good day. We'll see you soon. Bye.